So check this out, everybody. You are looking at one of the world's rarest plants. This is not hype, no clickbait here, but this is the only one of its kind in front of the camera here. So you can see Alice is modeling the plant just to give you an idea of how tall it is, and Alice is 6'4", so you can see just how tall. Okay, she's not 6'4", but and check out how huge these leaves are. This green vegetable grew throughout the summer from seed that I had collected from a dino kale plant. This is a result of natural hybridization that took place in my garden. I grow several different types of Brassica oleracea, and that year I had 6 different Brassica oleracea flowering at the same time. I had the dino kale, curly kale, purple tree collard, walking stick kale, merit collards, and abundant tree kale. So there's several types of DNA within this plant's parentage. Now I've already come up with a name for it. I'm not going to announce that today, and I've already begun to propagate this plant. So as we take a closer look at this plant, you can see that it's being held up by a 5-foot T-post. I just installed this as the plant was starting to topple over under its own weight. And you can see now a bunch of new cuttings are ready to be taken from this plant. Now this plant is growing atop a hugelkultur mound, and it's about a foot off the ground, but it's not completely straight either. So I would say that its height is pretty relevant, but maybe just a bit smaller than what appears on camera because of it being on the mound. Now, besides being an abundant, attractive plant, the leaves taste really good. And I look forward to eating a lot more of it. From the same batch of seeds that I grew this plant with, I've got a few more examples. Here's another plant growing back here. As you can see, not quite as tall, not quite as abundant. It's hard to say if it's because of the location or just the variance in the seed. This one is equally as tall, straight in the ground, and is looking pretty much just as abundant as the other one. However, the stalk is not quite as thick. And here's another example of a plant growing from the same seed batch. To me, this one is showing slightly different characteristics. Again, not quite as tall, not quite as thick on the stalk, but a beautiful plant nonetheless. So I will be taking cuttings off of all these different varieties and separating them out, but it's the one that I began the video with on the hugelkultur that I'm the most excited about. So the main purpose of this video is to really document the progression of this plant and also encourage anybody watching to experiment a bit in your own garden. Try your hand at growing several varieties in the same family of plant, collect seeds, grow them out, see what you got. You might end up with the next best thing. I just want to quickly clear something up about hybrids too. There is a misconception out there for some folks that hybrids aren't a good thing and that heirloom is the only way to go. Heirloom seeds are great. Those are preserved heritage seeds that can date back several generations. In the case of hybridization, when it happens in nature, what it is cross-pollinating of plants in the same family. And in that case, every time that a plant that's been hybridized goes to seed, those seeds are not going to grow true to the mother plant. But in the case of this plant here, it can be grown true to itself by taking cuttings. And in a lot of ways, growing a plant from cutting is a lot easier and faster than growing it from seed. So here are the cuttings that I had taken from the plant, and as you can see, the medium they're growing out of is nothing but sand. Now there's a lot of information online about propagating cuttings in sand. I found a wealth of information over at Mike's Backyard Nursery, and although it's often recommended to use a coarser grain of sand for better drainage and less clumping, I just used a traditional playbox sand. I'm having good results with that. So I'm about to pull these up out of the sand now, take a look at what roots have developed, and put them each in their own 1-gallon pot with some organic potting mix. I'm just going to pull this one out first, but first I'm just going to loosen the sand around it a bit. And you can see all the roots that have developed. I actually don't really want to brush the sand off. I don't want to disturb the roots much. I'm just going to put it right into the potting mix like this. So in the past, when I propagated cuttings, I never used a store-bought cloning solution. But on this batch, I used this Clonex stuff here, which has a really good reputation. Wanted to give it a try and just really wanted to ensure success with this batch of cuttings here. And I'm happy with the results. Also, another product I'll be using when potting up these cuttings is a bit of mycorrhizal inoculant. This is also not really necessary, but it is beneficial to your plants. It helps them to uptake water and nutrients. So this is something that I've used in the past and I've had good results. But with this, you just need a small amount around the root zone. And there you have it, the first officially propagated plant from that rare varietal. And during the 5 weeks that these were rooting, I never added any sort of nutrition to the sand. Just watered it every couple days. The sand retains water very well. And I did put some 1/4-inch drainage holes at the bottom of this container. And once the sand is wet, it's going to hold itself together. It's not just going to rush out the bottom like an hourglass. So here are the last 4 in the container. As you can see, we got 100% take on all those cuttings. I'm very happy. I'm going to leave these in the shade. They're getting a little bit of dappled sun, which is fine. And once I see that they've really started to grow again, I'll transfer them out to a more sunny location. And the sand here is completely reusable. So I'm going to propagate a new batch of cuttings in here. And if you do end up using a rooting hormone, you don't want to just take that cutting and jam it into your growing medium, or you're going to rub the majority of that rooting hormone off on the way down. What you want to actually do is make an opening to put the cutting in and then backfill it. Just a quick tip.